Only you need to be unmuted. There you go.
Okay, we're coming from Johnson Creek, Wisconsin, which is halfway between Madison and Milwaukee, right along Interstate 94. So welcome to our breakout. We'll be discussing connecting with parents. I'm going to share my screen. Okay, now that I've shared my screen, if you're not familiar with Zoom, on the right-hand side, you're either going to see a list of participants or you're going to see me, depending on the view that you're looking at. At the top on the right-hand side, you can click on Speaker View and see me. There's not much to see. Or you can click on Gallery View. And then between the two, between the slide on the left and the faces on the right, you have a slider bar that you can make one or the other larger or smaller. So if you want the slide smaller, just slide the bar to the left. If you want the slide larger, you can slide the bar to the right. And my name is Tim Thomas. My email is one of the easiest in all of Awana, just timt@awana.org. And we've been here in Wisconsin now for 15 years. We serve about 120 churches in southern and eastern Wisconsin, so all along the Illinois border, from Iowa to Lake Michigan, and then all along the lakefront from Illinois up to Michigan. So we have 2/3 of the state in southern and eastern Wisconsin. All right, today's breakout is going to be about connecting with parents. And so what I would like for you to do is to open up your chat right now, and I want you to type in why. Why is it important that we make connections with parents? And we'll see how many of things that you list are in the notes that I prepared, and then we'll during this breakout we will compare notes. So let's. All right, you guys have definitely been reading my notes. Definitely been reading my notes. All right. One of the primary goals of Awana is to create partnerships between the churches and the parents. And it's not the primary reason. You saw that in the Kahoot game, because it was one of the options. But the primary reason, the primary goal of Awana is the gospel. But we want to help create connections between churches, parents, and family. And the primary reason for that, Terry, you hit the nail right on the head. It's because parents are the primary spiritual influencer of their children. And there's no getting around that. They're either an influence for good or they're an influence for bad, but they are the primary spiritual influencer of their children. And so we want to connect with them, equip them, resource them to make sure that they're doing a good job in discipling their children. And God gave them that role. God gave the role of teaching children about God to the parents. And we see that all through Deuteronomy, that it's the parents' job to teach things to the children. And we also read in Deuteronomy and also in Psalm that there's other people that have a part in this. And we said that the most influential person in the life of a child is the parents. But do you know who number 2 is? Who's the second most influential person in the life of a child? Write that in the chat. Parents are number 1. Who's number 2? Actually, all of those are correct. However, number 2 is often a connected and involved grandparent. So if you're a grandparent today, we not only have a role in discipling our children and but also our grandchildren. And we learn about that in Deuteronomy and in Psalms. And Psalm says that we will tell the next generation the praiseworthy deeds of the Lord, who will in turn tell their children, who will tell their children, so that the children yet to be born will know the praiseworthy deeds of the Lord. And so we're thinking multi-generational. We're thinking parents, children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren. And so if you're a grandparent, I want to encourage you today to stay involved and connected with your grandchildren as we not only teach our children, but our grandchildren about Jesus Christ. So why is it important? At best, the best research that we have is that only about 30% of parents today, Christian parents that bring their children to church every Sunday, only about 30% of them are doing anything spiritually with their children outside of church. That means 70%, pretty much nothing. And 30%, and of that 30%, most of those, their total spiritual involvement with their children is bringing them to church, bringing them to Awana, bringing them to Vacation Bible School, and praying with them at meals and bedtime. And that's what most parents are doing. Now, we already said that the primary role of teaching children belongs to the parents, and we don't want to usurp that. And that's why we want to connect with parents, because they are that primary spiritual influencer. So here are some of the reasons that are in the notes, and you saw them as you were working, as you were posting. Is building a relationship with them, is having relationships with the families and not just the children. And that was also up there to gain trust so that we can have a relationship with the families. And so because of the relationship, we can then have influence with them. Number 2, that it is a partnership. We just said it's a church-parent partnership. So we want to partner with the parents in helping them to raise their children to know, love, and serve the Lord Jesus Christ. Number 3, encouragement. Parents are really struggling right now, and they were struggling before COVID. And now since COVID, they're trying to figure everything out. They're trying to figure out school. They're trying to figure out how to get groceries in some places. And so they need to know that somebody's out there that's on their side, somebody that's going to partner with them, somebody that will support them, which is the next one, in their efforts. And so hearing from us and that we're with them, that we want to help them, that we want to pray with them, that we want to support them, we want to serve them, is very important, especially right now. Number 5 is to resource them, give them tools, give them things they can use. One of the things that we're seeing right now, because of COVID and because so many clubs that are meeting virtually, is we are seeing an increase in parental involvement. that the parents are having to get the kids connected to the system. In some instances, the parents are recording the children saying their verses and they're emailing those or posting those to the leaders. So we are starting to see connections between, we're seeing parents take that role of being the spiritual leader in their home. And we want to continue to resource them and give them tools. And Brenda's going to be putting into the chat before this is over a couple of resources from Awana. First is the Awana Plus website. So I don't know if you've had a chance to go out and see Awana Plus. But on the Awana Plus website, there are pre-recorded large group lessons that you can send links to parents that they can watch or show their kids at home. Another resource is the home resources for equipping parents to run Awana with their children in their homes. And that is also on that Awana Plus website. There's a book on there you can download called the COVID-19 Playbook. And it teaches us how to do Awana 4 different ways, in person, online, a hybrid, or at home, equipping parents to do the work at home. And our job then would be to resource them and to help them help their children. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in just a moment. Okay, I don't even know what just happened here. Okay. Also a chance to evangelize parents, because we know that many of the children that come to our Awana clubs don't come from Christian homes. And when we start a relationship, when we start a dialogue, when we start communicating with the parents, God will open doors for us to share the gospel with them. So they'll be hearing the gospel when their kids bring home work or show work from their books. And as we're communicating with parents, we also have a chance to tell them about the love of Jesus. To welcome them to our church, to welcome them to our club, to thank them for letting their children participate in the ministry. And sometimes this might be an introduction to them to church. This might be their first time they've connected with a church in their community. And it might be the first time they've met another Christian. And when I teach this workshop in person, one of the things that I demonstrate, things are a little different now because of COVID, but it's introduce yourself to the parents. It's not hard. I mean, back in the day, it would be you stick out your hand and you say, "Hello, my name is Tim, and I'm Andrew's Awana leader. And I'm so glad that you let him come to our club. He's such a joy to be around. And, if you have any questions about us, about our church, or about our club, I put my name and phone number right in the front of Andrew's book. And if you have any questions, just give me a call anytime, and I'll do my best to answer those." And just making a connection with the parent like that. And you put whatever information you're willing to give, if it's a phone number, if it's a cell phone or an email, but let the parent know that we're there for them, and that if they need to get a hold of us, they can do that. Number three on this side is to inform them, let them know what's going on in our clubs and in our ministry, and how they can best help their children to be successful in club. So to keep them informed of events and how to communicate with us. To invite them to church, to invite them to club, to invite them to special events. Maybe to invite them to a Bible study that's coming up that they might want to be involved in. So these are all great reasons that we need to connect. And this is one of my favorites. Just to brag on their kid. Just calling a mom or a dad and say, "Boy, he finished his discovery, or he finished his challenge, or he finished this section, or he did really great, or he's really playing hard," and just create opportunities that you can contact parents and just tell them how proud you are of their child and how successful their child is and how well their child's doing. Because there's going to come a time when you might just have to call a parent for an unpleasant reason, and there might be a discipline problem. There just might be a problem with the child's behavior. And these are very, very uncomfortable conversations. But I can tell you one thing, they're a lot more uncomfortable if that's the first communication you've ever had with that parent. See, that conversation that we might have to have with a parent about a discipline issue will go a lot easier if we've done those other things first. If we've introduced ourselves, if we've thanked them, if we've bragged about their child, if we're just so grateful that they let their child be part of our program, part of this ministry, that when we have to have a conversation that's more difficult, that goes a lot easier. So I just want to encourage you, don't let your first conversation, your first communication with a parent be about discipline. Make up a reason, create reasons to communicate them before them, so that that's not your very first conversation. So you covered all those reasons and why it's important, because they're the primary spiritual influencer and we want to partner with them. We want to encourage them. So all those things you said in the chat were absolutely correct. All right. So now I want to move this to how is the best way? How is the best way to communicate with parents? Obviously, the best way is in person. That's the best way to do it, is in person. Now, with COVID, that might not be as easy as it used to be. So we would encourage leaders to connect with parents before club, after club. You know, I used to be an Awana ministry director for many years, and some of the leaders, some of the volunteers, you know, they were slipping in the door right when club was starting, and when club was over, sadly, they were one of the first ones out. But you know, one of the best leaders that we had, you know, they were there before club and after club. They were there when the parents dropped off their children to have a conversation with them. They were there when the parents picked up their child to again have conversations with them. When they would see them out at the Walmart, they would stop and have a conversation with them. So, you know, in person is obviously the best. In today's climate, that may not be possible. So we're going to move to other methods. You know, the telephone still works. And so many of us, phone is an unused app on our phone. We'll do anything except pick up the phone and make a phone call. We want to text them first to see if they want to talk to us, or they want to set up an appointment. Just pick up the phone and call. And they'll get used to you calling. So pick up the phone. If you can't do it in person, do it over the phone. The conversation's the same. Hello, my name is Tim, and I'm Andrew's Awana leader. And I'm so glad you let him come to our club. He's such a joy to be around. And if you ever have any questions about our club, our church, about Awana, here's my phone number. Here's how you get a hold of me. So the conversation's the same, whether it's done in person or over the phone. But having a real conversation with a person is critical. You know, the good old-fashioned postal service, they work really well. And some people think it's expensive, but you know, for 50 cents, somebody will come and take something from you and take it anywhere in the United States you want it to go for 50 cents. I think that's a bargain. And so sending things in the mail, especially, this is a little tip, this is more connecting with kids than connecting with parents. But if you want a child to read something, if you really want a parent to read something, put it in the mail addressed to the child. Because children don't get much mail these days. It's very rare for a child to get mail. And so if you send a letter addressed to the child, the parents are going to know what's in it. And so they will, when the child gets home from school, or when they'll probably open it together. And they'll talk about what's in that piece of mail. And then our goal with any piece of mail or anything we send home, our goal is for that to make it to the refrigerator magnet. And that's what we want. So if you want something to get on the refrigerator, mail it. Also email. Email works. We do have technology to now, so email or text or social media. All these things are great ways to connect with parents. In our conversation that we have with parents, ask them, what's the best way to reach you? Is it best to reach you by email? Is it best to reach you by text? And you know what happens when we ask those questions is we're going to get their contact information. When we ask them what's the best way to contact you, they're going to give us a method, and then we've got a method. So we don't have to wonder what the best way is. I encourage every church to have a social media presence. Facebook is very common, but some way that you can post information for parents to read. You know, especially with like new TNT, since it's all group paced, you know, we can post on social media in advance what lesson we're working on this week. So if a child's missed a couple of weeks, all they have to do is go out and look on your website or go look on Facebook, and they can see what section the child's supposed to be working on this week. And we can post that information. Whether you do a Facebook page or whether you do a Facebook group or how you do it, that's another breakout. But I do encourage you to leverage social media as best as you are able. Some parents like to be texted. You know, there's some people that, if I want my kids to contact me, I have to text them. So we need to connect with parents the most with their preferred method of being contacted. Bottom line is any means possible. Any means possible. If that means smoke signals, you know, we're going to use whatever we have to communicate with parents and to let them know that we're here and that we're for them. All right, Terry raised her hand. Let's see. Do you have a question, Terry? You want to unmute yourself or do you want to type it in the chat? Either way. Oh, it was an accident. Sorry. Okay. No worries. No worries. All right. I already mentioned the Awana Plus website, and it's awanaplus.com. Great resources for you to use with parents and the home resources. And Brenda has already put those links out there for you. So those are in the chat. All right. So we talked about why it's important. We talked about how's the best method. So when is the best time to connect with parents? When's the best time to connect with parents? Well, the best time to start is before club ever starts. Is during the summer break. Now we all miss that boat, but when next summer rolls around, connect with the families during the summer. Invite them back to club. Remind them when club's going to start. Maintain those connections. You know what? Sometimes in the fall, that when we're getting ready for club to start up, sometimes Awana's been running for 2, 3, 4 weeks. And suddenly you realize, where's Jimmy? Where's Jimmy? Jimmy was here. He was in Sparks. But now TNT, I wonder what happened to Jimmy. Well, according to Tom Rainer, the average church response when a family starts, when a church notices that a family's missing, you know what the average church in America does when they realize that a family that's been attending their church has stopped attending their church? You know what the average church does? Again, according to Tom Rainer? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Don't let that be us. Don't let that be us. When we see a child that's not coming to club, when we see a family that's not connecting anymore, let's reach out to them. Let's find out what's going on. Let's see if we can reconnect with them. We want to stay connected because also what Tom Rainer says is that those families that we were not connected with pre-COVID, they're not going to come back after COVID. So maintaining relationships, maintaining connections with our families and with our children in our children's ministry is vital, especially now during these times of COVID. So sorry to chase that little rabbit, but don't disconnect from our kids during the summer. Number two, at the beginning of the year. And why at the beginning of the year? Well, we got to tell them how to register. We got to tell them how to sign up. We have to make sure that they know when clubs started. We have to make sure that they know our policies. What are our rules of our church? You know, what's the process for dropping off a child, picking up a child, getting a child signed in? So there's lots of information we need at the beginning of the year. When a milestone's reached, remember we said before, you know, an opportunity to brag on their child. So when they've completed a level in their book, when they've completed that tough section, when they've finished memorizing the books of the Bible, let's call the parents and say, wow, you know, tell you the books of the Bible now. So again, when the child's reached the milestone, it's a great time to connect with the parent. For a special event or an adult program that's coming to churches. Now, I know lots of churches have tried to run adult programming opposite of Awana so that the whole family comes and stays at the church. And I know some churches have been successful at this. But if you haven't tried it, or if you've tried it and failed, I want to encourage you to try it again, but only ask the parents for a short-term commitment. Say, we're going to be doing this study or talking about this topic. It might be finances. It might be parenting. But we're only going to do this for 4 weeks. Or on the first club night of every month, we have a special program or special thing going on for parents to stay. You know, many parents, they drop their kids off at Awana, they go have date night, or they go do the shopping or whatever they need to do. A lot of parents aren't going to give up that time completely. But if we ask them for a short-term commitment, just a couple of weeks or 1 week a month, then I think we'd have better success with that. But a special event, Christmas programs, Easter programs, our year-end events, our year-end celebrations. And last thing I want to talk about before we take questions is rethinking our year-end celebration. You know, the goal of Awana to reach boys and girls with the gospel of Christ, that they might know, love, and serve the Lord Jesus Christ. We've been telling leaders this for several years. If you haven't heard it, this might be the first time. Write this down. It's not about a trophy. It's not about a trophy. It's about making disciples. And so what we've encouraged a lot of churches to do at their year-end celebration is not making the trophies the central point. Oh, yes, the awards are part of it, but the central point should be, what has God done in this church? What has God done in this club? What has God done in the lives of these families and these children? What have these kids learned? That should be what we celebrate. And we're going to give out trophies. We've had some churches that have taken the trophies off the platform and moved them into the foyer or into another part of the building. And they do their whole celebration. They recognize those that earned awards. And then they go to the other room and pick up their trophy. So just an idea to make sure that we're celebrating all the right things. And yes, we do celebrate and we do give out trophies. We do give out awards. Those aren't going anywhere. But let's make those year-end celebrations something that everybody can be a part of. And even those kids that struggle, and that we can have a chance to connect with those parents, again, to brag on their child and make those connections with them. So the challenge for you today is there's a space on your handout if you print it or if you just write it down. I want you to write down the names of 3 families. 3 families that you need to connect with. They might be going through a hard time, or you know what? They might not have come back to club this year. But 3 different families. And then once you've written down 3 families, I want you to circle the first one. Baby steps, one step at a time. So circle one of those families, and that's the one that you're going to call this afternoon. And connect with them and encourage them. All right, so I'm going to stop sharing my screen. You can unmute yourself if you have any questions, comments, or snide remarks. This is a good time to make those. You can do it in the chat, or you can just unmute yourself and ask away. We've got about 7 minutes for questions.
I was really happy that I guessed the Awana Plus site was .com, not .org, because as the recorder, I can't leave the screen to go get the URL.
That's good to know.
So I guess it would have been good for me to have my other monitor up, huh? So does anybody have any questions? It doesn't appear to be at this point. And I forgot to tell you at the beginning, and Tim had introduced himself. He has been a missionary for 50 years and is privileged to serve about 120 churches. So he already told you that, but I'm telling you again because I forgot at the first. And he serves South and Eastern Wisconsin, and we have sort of teamed together at the Go Big conference last year. Okay, ideas to get dads involved. They have a thing for moms. What about dads?
The greatest event for dads is Grand Prix.
Yeah.
So if you haven't been involved in Grand Prix, it's Awana's version of a Pinewood Derby. In fact, if you Google Grand Prix and Pinewood Derby, you get a lot of the same websites. Because dad's going to help make the car, and if dad helps make the car, they're going to want to watch the car race. But you can have a dad's night. You can have a dad's night at if you're meeting in person. You can have a dad's night if you're meeting online. Where dad just joins their child in at the meeting, or they come to club with them, or they sit with them during a virtual meeting.
I wonder about like a football night. So maybe there's a Friday night or a Sunday night football, and your state's team or whoever you support is playing. Maybe have we're going to have popcorn and watch the football game together and stream it. In Minnesota, I love to tease the Green Bay Packers because, I just have to. I tell people, and I'll right there, that I'm a closet Green Bay Packers fan, but if I'm around a Green Bay Packer, I'll be all the way around. Are there any other questions? Thoughts?
Well, thank you for attending. We have a new message. It is very different talking into the void. It's easier when you're talking to faces, but it's interesting talking into a void. Meet them in the parking lot. The drive-by parents, those children who are lucky if the parents actually do bring the car to that fully complete stop before the children have to exit. Meet them at the parking lot.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll roll the window down and say, "Hi, I'm Andrew's Awana leader. I'm so glad you dropped him off at club. If there's any way, give him a card, give him something with your name and contact on it. But meet him in the parking lot.
Any concerns with reaching out to kids on social media? This should probably be done through the parents.
Yes, always through the parents. Always through the parents. When I teach about connecting with kids and I talk about calling kids, always through the parents. Make sure you have parents' permission before you do that. But yeah, always through the parents' accounts, unless you have a Facebook page. The difference between a Facebook page and a Facebook group is a page you just like it. You don't have to ask for permission to join. So if a child joins that way, then they're getting the same public information that everybody else is. But the best way to do it is always through the parents' social media account. That way they see every conversation that's going on. Excellent. Well, I've got a minute over, so.
Yep, I'm going to stop this recording.